Hey guys, it's Nina, and today I'm going to talk about my top 10 favorite reads of 2018. So I have read 98 books in 2018, and I'm super excited about that number. I was hoping to reach 100, but November and December I just stopped reading. So these are my favorite reads throughout this year. Before I start, I do want to say that this is in no particular order. It would be way too hard because I read a lot of great books in 2018, so this isn't any kind of order. So let's just start with the honorable mentions because they were good, but they didn't make it into the top 10. So first is Mind Games by Kirsten White. This was a really awesome read and deals kind of like with mind control and kind of like psychic abilities, and she's working for this corporation, but they have her sister, and if she doesn't do what they say, they're afraid that she's afraid that they're gonna hurt her sister, I suppose. Ugh, that was a really bad explanation. It was a great read though. So honorable mention number 1. Then moving on to another honorable mention, we have Wonder Woman by Leigh Bardugo. I am not a huge superhero fan, so I didn't expect to like reading this. But I saw it at the library and it was a new book and I was like, I'll give it a chance. And I'm glad I did because it was such an awesome, empowering, strong woman's stance. And the side characters were great and it was a really amazing read. And then we have Bad Girls Don't Die by Katie Allender. I don't know if that's how you say it, Allender, I don't know. Anyway, this deals with kind of like a ghost. She's kind of like possessed. And I didn't know what this was about when I first went into it. It looked kind of like a juvenile book to me in the way it was like the words, and it's scholastic. So I was like, this is going to be like a kid's middle grade book. It was creepy as fuck. Let me tell you, I would not have read this in middle school. I was scared. It was like thrilling. I really enjoyed this book. It was creepy and it was awesome. And then the last honorable mention I have is a graphic novel called Jessie Elliott is a Big Chicken. And just look at this cover. All of the artwork in this was colorful and beautiful and funny. This was a really fun, easy read. And I loved it. So yeah, those are my honorable mentions. So let's actually get into my top 10. So number 1, this is not in an order like I said, but first top 10, Speak by Lori Halse Anderson and Emily Carroll as the illustrator. This is a novel, it's also a movie, but this is the graphic novel that I have read this year. I love the actual novel and the movie, but I read the graphic novel this year and it was amazing. This was so freaking beautiful. Emily Carroll is such a great illustrator, and the art in this was just breathtaking. The story is deep and sad and it pulls your heartstrings. I had like an awkward pause in between that, but it pulls your heartstrings and it just makes you want to cry. This deals with a girl who was at a party and got raped, and so she calls the cops and she doesn't tell anyone that she was raped, and so everybody thinks she called the cops to just crash the party. So everyone hates her, including her best friends. And then her best friend starts to flirt with this rapist. And she is scared for her friend and wants to warn her, but her friend's kind of a bitch. So, she has to go to school and see this guy's face all around. And she has to overcome these obstacles and, speak out about what happened and not keep it to herself, even though it's a very hard thing to do. And it's just... oh, it makes you want to cry. It makes you want to scream. I love this book unconditionally. So yeah. Then I have A Man Called Ove by Frederick Backman. This was another story. I didn't expect to like this because it's an adult fiction novel. It was about an old grumpy man and it was a contemporary read. And I was like, I'm not going to be really into it. Usually when I read adult novels, it has to like be a murder or something thrilling. So I was like, I'm not gonna like this if it's about a grumpy old man's life. But I decided to give it a chance, and I loved this novel. So this deals with an old man. I forget what country he's in. I don't know. He's in a different country. But it deals with this old man who has recently lost his wife, and it gives you a lot of background into his life and what kind of man he is. But he lost his wife, and that's really like the only person left in his life that he loved so much. And so losing her was like losing part of himself. And so he's so lost and sad without her that he plans to commit suicide and join her in the afterlife. But every time he attempts to commit suicide, he's interrupted, and it's kind of just like fate saying, hey, don't do this, people still love you, you know? And so we come to see that even though Ove is a grumpy old man stuck in his ways, there are still people who love him so much, and he loves them, and he, you know, finds the strength to move on even without his wife. And it's a beautiful story. It's so great. The background was done so well. Usually I don't like when, like, stories go, like, from one time period back to a different time period in someone's life. But the background was well executed in this book, and it was just so beautiful. There's also a movie for this that's not in English, so you'll have to use subtitles if you don't speak the language, which I did. But the movie was quite good as well. Then we have Art Kind of Cruelty by Armita Hall. I received this as an ARC. I received it through a giveaway. And this is also an adult novel that I read this year. Maybe I should start reading more adult novels because I have 3 adult novels in my top 10. And I only read like a few. But anyway, so this is a crazy ass book. This was thrilling and exciting and psychological and just mind-blowing. So this deals with a man who is in love with this girl named Variety. And they've dated for years. But then, like, you know, their relationship is toxic and he's insane. So she breaks it off. She moves on with her life. And she ends up getting engaged and wants to marry this other man. And she invites her ex to the wedding. And they used to play this game where she would go to a bar and flirt with any other men, and then he would get turned on by that, and then they'd go have sex afterwards. They'd be like, why are you fucking with my woman? And then, like, I don't know, it was a game to them. And so he thought that she was still in love with him, and that her inviting him to the wedding was a clue, and that this is their biggest challenge yet. This is a big game, and that she still loves him and wants him to come and save her, I guess. I don't know. It's fucking messed up. And it's amazing. So he ends up kind of stalking her. And she keeps saying, hey, I'm not in love with you. Like, this is not a game. I really love this man. I'm gonna marry this man. Like, you need to stop being crazy. And he's just like, okay, wink, wink. And he's just not getting it. And it ends in a murder. And the ending of this book, oh, I don't know if I love it or hate it. It just makes me so, like, infuriated. I wish there was a little bit of a prologue so I knew a little bit more of what would happen afterwards. But it's a crazy read. Next we have The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan. This cover was beautiful. This deals with a girl whose mom passes away, and I believe she commits suicide if I remember correctly. Yes, her daughter has to deal with, like, the after effects of that. And her daughter one day sees this bird, and this bird gives her a gift. And she believes this bird is her mother. And she receives a gift about, like, her family in Japan, I think. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at remembering details. But so she is convinced that she needs to go and visit this family and get to know more about her mother and this side of the family and what happened and everything. So she ends up traveling to Japan to meet her family and do what her mom wants her to do, and believes that her mom is this bird. And it's a really touching story. It's a thick book, but it's worth the read. We have Suicide Notes from Beautiful Girls by Lynn Weingarten. I also really enjoy this cover, but this story is also another crazy one. It deals with 2 best friends, and recently they've stopped being friends. One friend, what's her name? Delia? Okay, her one friend Delia is really manipulative. And then June is kind of the person who gets manipulated all the time and used. And anyway, they stopped being friends, but then Delia is believed to commit suicide. And June's like, that can't be right. That's not true. Like, my friend wouldn't do that, and there's no way she would do it that way. The way she dies is crazy. And so she's like, it has to be a murder. So she goes on this hunt to figure out what happened to her friends. And her friends isn't quite dead. And so it takes us on this journey of finding out what really happened and why she decided to do this and how she got away with it. And then June is getting used and manipulated over and over, and it's just this crazy ass story. And the ending of this is so confusing that so many different things could happen. The author writes it in a way that you kind of decide what you think happened in the book. And it's crazy. I came up with like 3 different endings that were possible, and I don't know if I hate them or love it. I kind of wish that it was a solid ending so I knew what happened, but like I kind of appreciate the way the author did that. But it's crazy. So Delia is alive and she's taking advantage of June, and some crazy shit happens. Then we have another graphic novel called The Wendy Project, and this, first of all, is so beautiful. This is like a journal. If you can't really see it, but it has like the roughness of a journal, and it has this little thing like some journals do. So the format is kind of like a journal. And inside, oh my god. So the art in this story was breathtaking. Let me tell you, it was so colorful and so beautiful. This is a retelling of Peter Pan in a really crazy way. So Wendy, our main character, is in a car accident with her 2 younger brothers, and one of them passes away, and she wakes up and she's like, no, he's still alive, you know, he's in Neverland with this flying man called Peter Pan. And she's like, her parents are like, you're crazy, you were having shock because you killed your brother, and like, you don't know how to deal with that guilt. So they take her to a therapist, and her therapist makes her write in her journal, and she writes about the Wendy Project and how she can't really figure out reality versus fantasy and what really happened to her brother. Did Peter Pan really come and get him and take him to Neverland? Is he really dead? And so it's really a sad story, but beautiful, beautiful art. A really awesome take on Peter Pan, and just crazy. Next, I have My Book of Life by Angel. This is written by Martine Leviat. This, oh my god, okay, this deals with prostitution and drugs and getting pimped out and sex trafficking and all of that, and it's so heartbreaking. So it deals with this girl named Angel, and I believe she runs away from home, but she finds this boy, and she believes that she's in love with him, and it's her boyfriend. Soon to find out, this boy wants to make her work for him, and she's, you know, pimped out by him, and she is forced to go and pleasure other men and give him the money so that she can live there and, you know, afford to be with him. But he really loves her, and, you know, she gets addicted to drugs, and it's just a really fucked up, sad story that's really true in some ways. I mean, this isn't a true novel, but this happens all the time, and it's a really heartbreaking book. And so she wants to get out of this lifestyle. She wants to leave because she's scared of what might happen if she continues on this road. She might end up dead and no one will care that she's dead, you know? And so she wants to get out of this lifestyle, but her boyfriend brings in this other young girl, and she's a very young girl. She's like 10, 11 years old, and Angel can't leave this girl just to be sold like she was, and she doesn't want to make that little girl go through that, so she doesn't want to leave her, and she's afraid what's going to happen, so she kind of sucks it up and stays and tries to help this little girl get away from this lifestyle as well. And it's really, really sad. And this book is a really quick read. It's written in like verses, and so it's very short and easy to read with a very powerful message. So then we have Scythe by Neal Schusterman. This got a lot of popularity on BookTube, and it was worth it. Let me tell you, the hype on this was so worth it. I loved this book. This deals with kind of like a futuristic feel. No one just dies of natural causes or anything like that anymore because they can just be revived or whatever. So the only way to stop overpopulation and, you know, have people actually die is by scythes. So they go around, they have a quota, a number that they have to kill every year. And so they go around and they choose people, and these people have to die. And so it's crazy. This is crazy. So this one Scythe has to choose an apprentice, but he chooses 2. And that's like never done before. And these apprentices become really close to each other. And so, oh, my feet, I'm falling asleep, guys. So it's a really crazy story, and there is like bad Scythes and like good Scythes. Like there's Scythes that really enjoy killing, and you know, like they're the bad guys, and there's Scythes that want to be merciful. It's like, you know, this has to happen. Like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna try and make this quick for you. Like, you know, be a good person. But this was a really awesome book, and I loved it. The last book I have to talk about is The Killing Lessons by Saul Black, and this was amazing. Okay, so this was a crazy book. This was also an adult fiction novel, and I really loved it. Oh, this is not the last book I have to talk about. I just don't have the other one with me, sorry. Anyway, so this has several points of view. It deals with these 2 murderers who are going to kill people because they're murderers. Anyway, so the one man was kind of raised in an abusive household, and so he has a lot of like mental issues, and he had trouble learning the alphabet. So they'd be like, A is for apple, B is for box or something. And so every murder victim, he hides those objects in these women. He rapes them, kills them, and then hides these objects inside of them. So whether that be in their hoo-ha, in their anus, in their mouth, you know, if he has to cut them open and put it in their stomach or something, like he hides these objects inside of them until he completes the alphabet because he feels like he needs to do that. So anyway, they try and go and murder this family. And the one little girl escapes, and she sees her mother is murdered, and she believes her brother is murdered as well because she escapes, and she runs, and they live in like the middle of nowhere, so she runs to their nearest neighbor, which is like 2 miles away, and there's no way to get to town. This neighbor is old, this neighbor can't walk or do anything, and so she's trying to tell him, you know, like, my family's murdered, like, we have to go find someone, like, we have to go save them, like, maybe they're still alive, we have to catch these people. Meanwhile, these murderers go and find other women and try and murder these women and find the little girl who escaped and everything, and it's just crazy. There's a lot of strong women representation in this, which I really appreciate. The characters in this were all very, very well portrayed and thought out, and they all had a personality to them. None of them were bland. They all had background. They all had something to say. And it gives you the detective point of view, the murderer's point of view, the victim's point of view, and there's several victims' point of views, actually, and it's crazy. The detective's kind of like an alcoholic, and she's all over the place, but she is, like, committed to solving this crime and catching these killers, and it's just, So the last book I want to talk about was also one of my first reads, and I have a book talk on it, so I'm not going to discuss it too much. But it's called Starfish, and it's by Amika Dawn Bowman. So this girl kind of struggles with social anxiety, and her mom is her mom's a big bitch, let's be real. Her mom's a bitch. She really wants to go to art school, I believe, and her parents aren't supportive, and so she goes on this road trip to, you know, learn about art and visit this art place, and her, like, what do you call those people? Role models? I don't know. And it's just a really touching story about her overcoming some hardships and her mom being a fucking bitch. And, like, it's a really beautiful story. Check out my Goodreads review on it and my book talk. I'll link that down below, as always, along with the other book talks I have on some of these. But I really love the story, and that's all I really want to say about it on this. But, yes. Anyway, make sure to check out my end of the year wrap-up, which includes all 98 books. I'll link that down below. and my top 10 worst books of the year as well. Okay guys, have a wonderful day. Bye!